Hello everyone, welcome back to the Board Game Specialists. This week we are going to be talking about our top Reiner Knizia games. This is episode 39, and I am Carla.
And I'm Melanie.
Now before we get into that, how was this list for you, Mel?
Well, I got on the BGG website and then kind of looked at all the games that Reiner Knizia had done. Now, if you include all of his expansions and stuff that he's designed, there was a list of over 600 games on there, and I was like, whoa. I haven't played that many. Now, my list of games of Reiner Knizia that I haven't played that I want to play is probably longer than what I have played, but it was a neat list to put together. I'm a big fan of his. I've played a few of them, but how was it for you?
Yeah, me too. Same thing. I had I wrote a list of the ones I want to play, and it's more than I have, but he has so many games. His games don't typically make it to the top of my list, but a lot of them make it on my list because some of them I played since I became a gamer, and even today I'll still be playing those games. They're just kind of tried and true, and they'll last the test of time, I think, and they'll always be in my collection. Yeah. So what have you been playing lately?
Well, I had the game night just last night. I had a few friends over, and I managed to coerce Patrick to play with us as well, so that was nice. The first one we played was the Deadlies. That's created by our friend Paul Saxberg. I first played that one when it was still in its prototype forms a few years ago, and it's such a neat looking game. The artwork is stunning. It's such a well-produced game. And then Patrick's number one game always is Uno. So we're like, well, this one is kind of plays a similar version of Uno, but it's so much better. Let's try this. And it was good. He ended up winning, too. And what's really neat with this one is everyone gets, a little token that keeps track of where you're at in the game. So you start with 6 cards. And this is about the 7 deadly sins. And your cards will be, from 1 to 7 for each of the sins. So if you play a greed card, then that one will have, this special ability to you'll take the deck or card and you give one to each player, and you keep pushing until you reveal 2 of the same sim, the same greed or the same sin, and then you bust, and then instead of giving cards to the other players, you have to take it all. If you manage to get 5 cards out without revealing the same sin twice, you get to discard your whole entire hand and move on to the next step. Because after you finished getting rid of your whole hand for the 6th card, you would draw 4 cards, and you would draw 2 cards, and then you would win the game. So you're trying to get rid of all of your cards a few times. There's Sloth, and Sloth doesn't do anything, but every time you play, because when you play, you have your cards, and you can discard a run, 1, 2, 3, 4, or whatever, and the run has to be a minimum of 2 cards. But so you discard that in front of you, or you could do 3 7s and then discard that in front of you, or you could do all the same color and discard that in front of you. So there's a lot of different ways that you could discard, or you could discard a single card. And you always just discard in the discard pile right in front of you. And then the next person goes, and it doesn't matter what you've put down, they get to play or discard whatever they want. But depending on what you discard and what's on the top, you activate that card's ability. As I mentioned, the artwork is super neat. The plays was super fun, and it was great. After that, we played the horse racing game, because that's a game that Patrick had suggested, and Glenda had never played it. We didn't play it fully, but with that one is you have the board, and you have these wooden horse that's all at the gate, and you start by rolling the dice to scratch 4 horses. So these ones aren't going to be racing, but what's going to happen is you take a deck of cards, you remove the 1s, and you remove the king. So everything is between 2 and 13, and you just hand that out to everybody, so you have cards at the end, like different cards in your hand, and those are your ticket on the horses that are racing. So any of the horses that got scratched, you take those out of your hand because they can't win, and then what's left is kind of the card that would pay out for you, the horses that would pay out for you. So of course, if you have like 3 5s in your hand, you're going to cheer for horse number 5 to win, and you're going to roll a dice. 2 dice, and then the number that it comes up, you would move that horse by 1. If you roll like number 5, then the horse number 5 would roll by 1. Now, if horse number 8 was one of the horses that was scratched, then if you rolled an 8, you would have to pay into the pot. And then the pot is anywhere from 1, 2, 3, or 4 coins you'd have to play. We're playing with poker chips. So then you roll, it's like, oh, darn it, it's an 8, that's 3 coins, so you put 3 coins in the pot. And then you do that until one of the horse reaches the end of its line. And because of probability, like the number 7 horse has a much longer line than the number 2 horse, which only has like 3 spaces in front of it to win the game, and so on. And then whenever a horse wins, you split the pot into 4. There'll be 4 cards of that number, and then whoever has it gets that portion of the pot. So if I had 3 of the 4 cards, I would take 3 of those little pots. The other person who had that same number would get the other one, and then you get that. So it's an elimination game. With Glenda, Michael, I don't think it was a big hit because they're such gamers that this game has no strategy. It is all pure luck. You're just rolling the dice and hoping that your horse comes out. So if you don't like games that are based on chance, this isn't for you. But with my kids, with like, new gamers, this is a big hit. It's been fun. And then we played the Transcontinental, which I'm super excited about. I bought this game at FallCon, and then we set it all up, and it is such a neat game. Now, the setup is a little bit labor intensive because there's so many tiles that goes on. But you have like the board that goes from east to west, and you put all these tiles, and you have like the beginning portion of the east side that has no tiles, and that's because that portion of the train track is created, and you have the little metal train that'll go up and down. So it goes up to where the line is done being built, then it turns around and it comes back to the Maritimes, and then you'll start again. But when you reach the end of the line, you can kind of dedicate some of the resources that you would have collected along the way to building it further. And you would remove some of these tiles. Now, like you kind of, whoever has like reserve or kind of dedicate the most resource would get to take the tiles, like they're a tile pick first. So then these tiles will have like different points values. So it's like, I'm going to take the 5 points. Then you would score your 5 points and so on. And then you kind of push the line further. Now, every spot on this train track as well has, like, it'll connect to a tile that's above the train track and a tile that's below the train track. And it's a worker placement game, so you would put your workers somewhere along the line of the train track, and you get to activate the top portion and the bottom portion. And then some of those things aren't built yet, so if they're not built, you can dedicate some resources to that tile to build a lumber mill or different things that's along the way, if you wish, and you can build a building. Now, if a building gets put and you didn't put any resources on it, that card gets flipped over. Whoever did put resources would get to put a little house token on it. So they're the only one that can activate the house action. So it's kind of worthwhile to put some tokens on all of these so you kind of get a piece of the action. But every tile does have an action that you can do even if you don't have a house on it. So, but you know what? This one was unique. I haven't played anything that kind of resembled that to me. It was really thematic because, you're building the train at the same time, adding cart to it. When you're going on the different locations, like, okay, well, you get to collect, let's say you get to collect some workers, and they don't call them workers, they're called something else, but then you can put your little cubes on the worker cart on this train, and then maybe you go into one and say, okay, well, you can get wheat, but there's no wheat cart on the train, so you would add a wheat cart in the yard, but then you can't spend that resource because it's not on the train. And it was neat. It was interesting. It was definitely thematic to the whole train building theme, and I'm so glad I played it. So that was the Transcontinental, and that's all I played last night. So how about you, Carla? What did you end up playing?
I've been playing Village Green. This is a small box game, just a card game basically, but kind of a Sudoku-like puzzle where you're placing in a grid. It's 3x3, and on the top of the 3x3 and on the left side of the 3x3 you can place scoring cards as well. And what you're placing is there's 3 sets of flowers, and on the cards you're going to have certain things like trees or statues, or it could just be a blank spot that you could put anywhere. It could be all kinds of different things, but the scoring cards are going to score, like the top row will score the 3 columns down, and then the 3 left side scoring cards will score the rows. So the one stipulation is you can't place a card that like next to another card unless it has the same color of flower or the same type of flower. So you always have to make sure that each thing beside everything, like each other, like not diagonally, that doesn't matter, just orthogonally, is the same, either color or flower. And so the scoring cards may have on them, say like we want to have 3 different types of trees, but we don't want to have any statues because then the statues will give you negative points. So you're trying to place them that way, but then across it might say something like it wants statues on one of these scoring cards. And you get to choose your scoring cards. You do start with 3 at the top, but you can choose the ones that are coming down the side. And you're just drafting. You have a hand of a few cards at the beginning, and you're going to draft either a field card that will have, you know, your trees or statues or whatnot, or you're going to draft a scoring card. And then once somebody completes their whole grid, that ends the game. Now, on each turn, you could also just, if there's nothing out there you want, you could just bury one under the deck and then wait for your next turn. So that's how it can kind of slow down a bit, where someone might be further ahead than you. You can also flip your Village Green card, and you can flush the market in case it's just, you know, all the cards are terrible and you want something new. Or you can place one over top into your field. So it's just one of those little thinky games that it plays well solo. It's basically a solo game. Like you're 2 people. If you're playing with more people, you're just building your own thing. It's just the drafting of the cards is the only player interaction, but it's quite addicting, and it's not easy. It's a hard little puzzle. But they're also coming out with a new one called Village Rails. Yeah, Village Rails. So you're actually building these little rail systems, and it's a bigger grid. I think it might be 4x4 or maybe even a 4x5 grid, where you have to connect all these rails, and then I think there's like little delivery routes. Like I'm not sure exactly, but I've watched like a quick playthrough, and it looks even more puzzly. So I'm excited for that one. But I've also been playing Obsession. This is on BGA right now. So I played it a couple times on there, and it's a really good implementation on there. Only they just have the base game, so they don't have the upstairs, downstairs expansion, which makes it so much better, but it's still fun to play on there. And sharpen up your skills in this one, because this is a little puzzly one too, where it's a tile placement, worker placement type of game, where you're only placing your worker on your board, but you're taking one of your tiles that you've already placed and you place it on the top, and that's the action you're doing. And this is a game based on like Downton Abbey, where you have your butlers and your ladies' maids and all these little meeples that you need to fulfill certain activities. And then you also have a hand of cards, and you each start with a family, and what you're trying to do is work up your reputation. You have really bad reputation, and you need to work it up so that you can win the favor of the... Oh, I'm blanking on their names. Anyway, you're winning the favor of this Fairchild. That's what it is, of the Fairchilds. And you will, if you have won the favor, like there's 4 different rounds, I think, where you can you try to build up to win. Then you get one of these one of the male or female card, and they're very powerful card. You get that in your hand until the next courtship is what they call it. And so then you get to use these cards, and they will either give you money, reputation. They'll let you draw more cards, which are more guests that you want in your hand, because the more that you can use for your activities. And it's just a really unique game, and it's so interesting. I don't know if you ever tried this one.
No, not yet. I'm booked to play it at CapCon. So.
Oh right, yeah. No, it's good. Also been playing Wingspan, and this game, the more I play it, the more I love it. It like I liked it from the beginning, but I just appreciate it more and more as I play it. It just seems to, I don't know, it's like one of those games that just keeps getting better and better and better as I play. Find more strategy, more interesting things you can do in this game. But I've been playing that one also on BGA, and this one it's awesome on there, because you can just like make the cards look bigger just to read them. The layout is awesome. It's just so easy to play and get your food, and I just love it on there. I played Genotype. Now this one we played the other day, and this is one of those Ingenious games, I think, that makes these kind of scientific games. And this one you're learning about, it's like a learning game too. You're working with pea plants, and you're trying to make the best pea plants that you can with your like cards that you have, and you're drafting the traits. So you're drafting like what are the traits again? They just have like symbols on them, so I just use the symbols, but the actual names are like, I think you can have a tall or a short, or I think one is color possibly, but there's 4 different traits that you can draft from each of the 4 different types of pea plants. And so you have this hand of cards, and then you have this garden that you can plant them in. And then you'll have a worker placement phase where you're placing workers to get either money, you can manipulate some of the traits by making some of them stronger so that you have a better chance at getting, say, like a tall plant that you need. You can get tools that will help you throughout the game. You can get more cards, more garden cards that you'll want to plant in the future. And so then you do this worker placement phase, and then you do the phase where you roll the dice and you put them on the board, and then you're going to draft the dice. And you'll take the dice, each dice is one of the traits, so you'll take one of the dice and put it on your board, and then you'll cover one of the traits that you've completed with this little leaf, and that's how you kind of complete your plants. And then after that, there's a phase where you can upgrade, and you can get helpers, you can get more workers, you can get another dice slot or another garden slot, so that you can put more cards out. And this was one of those games that I think came out and didn't have a lot of buzz, and then people started playing it, and they're like, this is really good. And it's kind of getting a slow burn, because the mechanics are so awesome in it, and it's a quick game. 5 rounds, and you play it less than an hour, but it still feels meaty and crunchy.
Nice.
And then the last one we played was Thebes, the card game. Now, you had taught me Thebes at FallCon.
Yeah.
And I loved it. It's another unique game where I don't think I've ever seen anything like it. Not like it's not a deep, heavy game, but it's just that light medium Euro that is just, fun to play. Like, it's a perfect family game, I think. You're just set collecting, but you're also doing push your luck by drawing in the bag to pull out these artifacts, but then you end up getting sand. Well, with the card game, it's basically the same. The only difference is you don't have the board where you have to move around. You just basically will collect a card, or go on an expedition, or fulfill one of these museum cards, or the other card is like an artifact card. So you have a hand of cards to start, and then there's 4 different cards you can draft in the middle. And then if you draft one, then you'll pick up from this pile of cards, and it may be another card you put in the middle, or might be a color card that will go towards one of the dig sites. So these dig sites will develop more and more cards, and there's like 5 different colored dig sites. And so say there might be 10 cards by the time you go to the dig site. So you have to build up your knowledge again, just like in the game with all these books. And you will say I had 10 orange books, and then I decide, okay, I'm going to go dig at that site. So you look on your little chart, just like you have in the big game. Yeah. It's not a wheel, it's just a chart this time. And you'll look down, okay, I have to spend this many weeks. So it's the same kind of thing. Like you go around this board just spending time, and the person behind is always the one that gets to go next. And so then you'll pick up the deck of cards from the dig, and you'll shuffle them, and then you'll just start flipping them over and see what you get. And you'll either get artifacts, or you might get some more knowledge in there, or you'll get just a blank card, which is sand, right? And it's really neat because it does add a little bit. So you get to keep your artifacts, of course, but then you have these museum cards, which I don't remember in the big game because I haven't got mine, hasn't arrived yet, and I just played it the once. So completing these museum cards, you can give up some of your artifacts. Say this one museum card wants 4 artifacts, but you'll get 12 points. Well, you could give up 4 1-point artifacts. Is that in the big game?
It's in the big game where you'll have where you can do displays on museum. You don't lose the artifact, you keep them, but you have to have certain ones in order to be able to do the museum show, basically.
Oh, okay, so that's a different one. So that's another card where you have to have like a set collection of like 3 purple, 2 red, and then a green or something. Yeah. And so then you can fill those ones, and you don't have to give those up. But the museum ones you do. You have to give them up. So it kind of gives you 2 different options. And so it gives you all these ways of collecting and getting points. But then in the drafting cards, there's all kinds of things that you can pick up a card that is like a robber, and you can like just look at one whole deck and take one card out of it. So you get to see everything. Or there's one card that lets you just look at one deck. So before you would dig, you could see, like, is it just all crap in there? And then I'm not going in. Or there's just all kinds of things that... Oh, and then also, if you have the most knowledge of one color, you get one of these professors. So if I had the most green, I could grab the green professor. But as soon as another player gets more than me, then they take it. So kind of like the longest road in Catan. It keeps going as long as someone has more. But it was just such a neat little... Like it was about an hour long. Like it's not a short game because it's quite a big deck you go through, and when the deck's done, that's it. And then you count up all your points. But we had a good time. We really liked it. And it's you almost wouldn't need the big game other than the fact you get to pull from the bag if you
I want both.
Yeah, you would like it. Yeah. Oh, yeah, I always like to have both when there's like a big game and then a card version or the dice version. I always need to have, it's nice, just like Istanbul and the dice game. I just love the dice game too. But yeah, so that's what I've been playing. Nice. Now let's get to our top 9. Now, do you want to talk about any that you're wanting to get before you get into your top 9?
Yes. You know what? So Lost Cities, the board game. Now he's got Lost Cities, like that's a 2-player game. There's also a board game version that play up to 4. I own it. I just got to play it. So that's one that I haven't played.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I bought it. Jeez, when did I buy it? I don't know. A few months ago anyways. But it's just one that... my collection is very large. And I've accumulated a lot of games in the last few months that I really need to catch up. So... and I'm just not playing as much as I need to in order to do that. But so that's one that I want to try. Also, Ingenious, the dice game. That's another one that I own the main game, but I got the dice game version, so I haven't got that one played. I got that dice game version secondhand at Melcon. So that was back in June, a few months ago. So that's one that I want to try to get to the table as well. How about you? Any honorable mentions?
Awesome. Well, just ones that I want to play is Mille Fiore is coming out. My Island, which is like a sequel to My City, so it's like a campaign legacy game. Paulin is one that's on Kickstarter right now, a little tile laying game. Witchstone is supposed to be such a good game. And High Score is just a little dice, I think a little roll and write dice game, and there's so many more, but those are just a couple of the ones that I would love to try out. Mille Fiori is on my list. As soon as that comes to Canada, I'm going to get that one. It's supposed to be like a little tile laying
there you go.
Combo delicious like Gauchon clever game. Yeah. It is. Yeah, so what's your number 9?
Okay, my number 9 is Colossal Arena, which was published in 1997. And this one is an interesting one. I bought this game a long time ago, and this is an old game, like 97. It's not the oldest game on my list, but it's up there. And what's really neat about it is you have this board, and you have like all these different monsters that are going to be battling in this arena. And you're basically just a spectator and you're cheering for them, but you can bid on who you think the winner's going to be. Now, you can bid early on, and if you bid early on, your bid is going to be worth that much more than if you wait later in the battle rounds or whatever. And you have cards that you can kind of put to kind of help your champion win, basically. So be like, okay, I'm bidding on this guy to win. I have a lot of his cards. I'm going to put points so that he has a higher chance of winning the battle or whatever. And each round, some of these monsters get eliminated. So if you bid too early and then the monster gets eliminated, your bid is not going to be worth anything. But if you bid early and they actually make it to the final rounds, then that bid is worth a lot. And you have so many bids you can place. So be like, okay, well, I'll do this one early because I got a lot of these cards. I think I can get him to win. And then as you be like, okay, well, that one's gone. Okay, now this one is doing good. So you can then later round kind of start bidding on the one that are not eliminated that seems would be doing good. These bids aren't going to be worth as much, but the likeliness of them being correct, meaning that the other monsters have been eliminated now are higher too, right? Mm-hmm. There are kind of special card abilities as well that I hadn't really explored yet. So, but it was an interesting. It's just like that's the Reiner Knizia way. He is such a clever game designer, and all the different little nuance that he thinks of in his games are just amazing. And this one was neat. So that's my number 9, Colossal Arena.
Awesome. I haven't actually heard of that one. My number 9 is Blue Lagoon, made in 2018. Now, this one is a route building game. Again, I've told you I'm not good at these games, and I'm actually terrible at this one, but it's still so intriguing. What you're doing is you're building paths on this board, and you're placing these little huts. And when you place these huts, you have to place one next to the one, or not these huts. You're placing either a worker or a swimmer, I think it's called, and you're placing them next to one that you've already placed. And then once you get a certain area, you'll place a hut down, and then you'll get to keep that there from round to round. And there's 2 rounds to this game, so you're trying to get control of this island, of these different islands. And so you want to have the most that you can on each island, but you're also collecting these little fruits and like coconuts and things. And those are just going to be for pure set collection. So you'll do this, and everyone will use all of their little chips. And at the end of the round, you'll score all the majorities on these islands, and then you'll score your set collection of because you want unique sets. So once you get your score, then you clear off the board, but you get to keep your huts there. And then you'll start again with your same chips. And then you can always build off your huts this time. So it's tricky to get around the whole board, especially the first round, because it's quite big. And you can't usually get to every island. I mean, you could get to every island, but you're going to barely have anything on them. It's quite just a simple concept. You could teach this in minutes, but I found it really hard to master this one. It doesn't matter who I play with. My family, I've played with, I think me and Cherry have played it. and I just can't figure out how to get the best points out of this. I don't know why. It's some of these simpler games I can't seem to master. I can figure out strategies in heavier games, but some of these simpler ones I can't. But it still intrigues me. And this one he's made other games that are similar, like Through the Desert or Babylonia, which I'd also like to try sometime. But I think this is the simplest version of those. But that's my number 9, Blue Lagoon.
Great choice. My number 8 is 2 games. I'm putting them as a 1 entry just because they play exactly the same. And that's Schotten Totten and Battle Line. Now, this says published in 2000. I think Battle Line is the older version. Schotten Totten is by far the best looking of the 2. The artwork is like bright and whimsical, and it just looks so neat. Battle Line is beige, and you'll play it and it looks very drab on the table, but the gameplay is the exact same. So you have these different section that you put between 2 players, because it's a 2-player game, that you'll kind of have the different area you'd be battling, and you have your cards and you'll be playing cards designating them to different location, and it's a little bit where you're trying to get the better poker hand on your side of this board for like the one location. Now some cards will have kind of ability or power thing that allow you to kind of manipulate what's going on with the card, so you can kind of do an action to maybe move something over. And you're trying to gain, win 5 of the locations and be the winner of 5 of the location, or 3 in a row, something like that. And it's just kind of an interesting, it's kind of like playing this like, okay, and it has that poker component where, you know, a run and 3 of a kind, or, you know, and then like will be worth different things, and one's worth more than another. It's like, okay, well, if I do this, I could get the lead, but then you need to have that card in order to be able to add it to the others to try to get the upper end at that location. It's such a neat game. It plays really quick. This is definitely like a filler game. And the look of it is just super, well, the Schotten Totten is beautiful. I own Battle Line. You have Schotten Totten. That's where the first played it was your version. Yep. Then I got Battle Line. Oh, yeah. But both are great. So that's my number 8, Schotten Totten / Battle Line.
Good choice. I think they've also made a new version of the Battle Line just recently. I don't know if it's called the same, but they made a prettier version of the Battle Line. Ooh. But anyway, my number 8 is Pickomino, and this was made in 2005. And this is just a goofy dice game. You're barbecuing worms. That's the theme.
Oh, that's right.
And so you have all these little dominoes. You have these dominoes, and they go from, I'm going to see the numbers here, 21 to 36, I believe. Or maybe there's more in a higher player count, because this game goes up to like 8 people. You can play 2 to 8. And so you're just rolling dice, and you're trying to get like numbers, high numbers if you can. So if I had like 3 5s, I could take those aside and put them aside, and then keep rolling my dice. And then say I had 3 6s, and I can pull those out. So then I add those all together, and so say I got a total of 34. I could grab one of the 34 domino. I would also have had to have rolled some worms and kept them aside, or you can't pull any off the barbecue. So say I had a couple worms and I pulled this 34 out. This would sit in front of me, and then I would pass to the next player, and they would roll, and they'd try to collect these dominoes. And so if you collect another one, then it goes on top of that domino. But if somebody rolled my exact number, say I had 34, they would take it from me. Now there's these little creatures, little meeples that are also have like a little ability that are placed on some of the meeples that, or on some of the dominoes. If you end up taking that domino, you'll get that ability. And one of them, like this little hen, keeps your tile safe, no one can take it, or this other one lets you re-roll, or one adds like worms to your like always gives you a worm so you don't have to roll one. And it's just a really silly dice game, but it's really fun, and it's neat to play with anyone, really, because you're just rolling and pushing your luck. And the thing is, you can bust. So you could roll your dice, and so say I got 3 5s, put them aside. Well, say I rolled again and only got 5s, well, I would bust because I already took my 5s. So you could take your 5s, your 6s, and then like maybe a 1 because you're looking for this exact number. And then you want to chance it and re-roll again, and then you can bust. So you just kind of keep going around. And again, my dice rolling skills are very, very weak. I usually end up with 1 tile and everybody's got this stack of tiles around it, and I'm just trying to steal theirs, and it never works out, but I still have fun playing it. It's just a fun, goofy game, and that's Pickomino, my number 8.
Neat. My number 7 is High Society. Now that one was published in 1995, so it's quite an older one. I had heard of it, people had talked about it, and I had never played it, and it sounded interesting, and then I bought it secondhand a month or 2 ago, and then we played it a couple weeks ago for the first time. Now, when you look at it, it looks very much like For Sale. The cards have that For Sale. The money cards look like the For Sale one. So, and it has a similarity to it, but this one is really neat. So each player gets a set of cards that's their money cards. And, you know, so if I'm the yellow player, I'll have the yellow cards, the red cards, or whatever the different colors are. So we all have the same amount of money. Then you have these cards that you're going to be bidding on. And the goal is you're trying to build as much prestige as you can by acquiring all these prestigious things. So you could buy a mansion, you could buy a racing horse, and they're all going to have different value of prestige, right? So some will be like, you know, the mansion is going to be worth way more than the racing horse is going to be. So what's going to happen is you're going to flip a card. It's like, hey, we're bidding on the racing horse. And then the first person's going to be like, hey, I'll bid this much money. And you kind of go whether you outbid or you stop and so on. And you can't make change because you're like, you have a card that's like a $25,000 card or whatever, and you can't make change. So if you bid that's that. And then, so you're going around until somebody wins the bid. Everybody else takes their money back. The winner of the bid discards the money, but they get the prestige card, and they have those points now for prestige. Some cards, however, have negative prestige, and it could be like there was a fire and you lose most of your mansion or something, and that would cause to lose half your prestige points. Or there's a few cards that'll come up like that that have negative things. With these ones, you're still bidding, trying not to pick this up, and whoever backs down from the bid first is going to have to take that card. But everybody else who bid to not take lose the money they bid. So you're trying to like, okay, well, I don't want to bid nothing. I don't want to bid too much because you're just kind of giving up that money. But you also don't want to get that card because it really negatively influences your prestige and so on. So you play until all the prestige cards have been bid. Then whoever has the least amount of money is eliminated because you don't want to give, like, you can't be the poorest of the bunch to be part of the high society. So if you've bid and spent too much in this whole bidding thing, well, then you're eliminated anyways. Doesn't matter what you have for prestige, for prestige point. And when we played, that's what happened with Michael. He had been buying all these things, but he didn't have enough money to stay in the game, so he was eliminated. And then for whoever's left is whoever's collected the most prestige point is the winner. It's such an interesting game. I mean, and it's quick, it's simple. But like you kind of have like, okay, do I bid? I don't want to spend too much money because you need the money, but you know you need the points, and then it's interesting. And that's my number 7, High Society.
Yeah, this one is interesting. I've never played it, but I have to try this one at some point. My number 7 is Marshmallow Test, made in 2020. And now I talked about this game in our trick-taking games. This is one of his unique trick-taking games where you're playing your tricks and you're trying to collect tricks, but you can only score as many that other people have already collected. So the first person to go out will get 0, and then after that you'll get points at what they got. Or no, wait, now I'm thinking maybe it's what you have plus what they have. But the thing is, the last person to go out gets 0, so you can't wait too long. You have to wait like just enough. The second last person would get the most points, but the last person in the next round gets to choose the trump. So it's kind of, it could be a strategy, maybe the first round to just be last and then get to choose it next round, but you'll miss out on some points. It's just a really simple one as well. It's not like one of the ones with, 10 different rules. It's just got simple rules in it, but it's very unique. And if you're a trick taker lover, you should really try this one. And that's Marshmallow Test, my number 7.
That one does sound interesting. My number 6 is a crossover, and that's Blue Lagoon, published in 2018. I remember the first time I played this, I played it at Shoebox in Calgary with Michael, and it had just come out. Michael brought a copy and we played it, and I lost horribly. And then this is, like an area control game that plays in 2 phases. The components are great with this one. Like those little huts just looks so amazing because they almost look like a little mushroom because you have like the colored lid on it, and they're wooden, and then like the little base. But such a neat game. And yeah, like I haven't really got to play it really again since it kind of had originally came out. Now, if this is one that I would come across, I would definitely add this one to my collection. It was neat. I remember it being like, it plays fairly quick, like a little bit over half an hour. So it's not like a long game, but yeah, no, it was very neat. So that's my number 6, Blue Lagoon.
Awesome. My number 6 is Ingenious, made in 2004. Now this one I just played the other night. I didn't want to mention it because I'll talk about it right now. This is a tile laying game, like a abstract strategy game, where you have these double hex tiles, and they will have a different color pattern on each one. And you start there, you have this board in front of you. It's like got all these blank hexes on it, but it does have inset in it one of each color around the edge. And depending on the player count, you'll have a bigger board the more players. So you'll just kind of shrink it in a bit if it's just 2 of you. And you have to start by placing one of your tiles next to one of the pre-printed ones. And then after that, you just connect to anything that's on the board. And how you score points is whatever your tile's connected to, if whatever it matches in any direction, then you will get to score points for the colors it matches in any direction of that color. So at the beginning, you'll only get a couple points for each thing, but once the board builds up, you could score quite a few points on each tile. And the thing is, so you have this little board where you keep track of how many points you get for each color, but what you want to do is move them all up quite evenly, because at the end of the game, you're only going to score your lowest one. So if you've gotten 2 that are right at the end and then 1 way back, well, you're only scoring that one. So you really got to try and keep them going evenly. And another thing in this game is once you get to the end of the track, you get a bonus of another turn. So it's kind of nice to get to the end and then just go again right away. It's, again, another just simple rules, but very, very strategic to master. And I don't think I've played with more than 2 people. I would really like to try it with 3 or 4 and just see how much different it would be that way. But it's such a neat game, and that's my number 6, Ingenious.
Yeah, that one is great for sure. Now, my number 5 is Hollywood Blockbuster, which was published in 2000. Now, this one has been published under a different name, Nightmare Productions and different ones, but this one is so cool. You have so many contracts to begin with that you kind of keep behind a little screen so people can't see how many contracts you have. And you're going to go from location to location. In each location, you're going to have so many tiles you're bidding on. Now, the very first one is always like a high-valued producer. And then be like, okay, well, I'll bid 1 contract. Next person, well, I'll bid 2. So, well, I'm going to bid 5. It's like, okay, you can have it for 5. Now, if there's a 3-player game, whoever wins the bid will take the contract and they divide it between the other players, and then you get those back with your other contracts. You have more contracts to bid for the future ones. Now, in this case, if they had bid 5 and there's 2 other players, one would get 2, the other would get 2, one would stay in the middle and get kind of divvied up next time that there's an uneven one. And then you would collect this tile and you would assign it to one of the movies that you're doing. And I think you have 3 movies going at a time. And these movies will need publishers and actors and supporting actors and visual effects and sound effects and special effects. And there's different things that you're putting into them. But what's really neat too is just the puns involved. Like, they have little caricatures of the different actors on the tile that you'll be bidding for. So the next one could be that there's 2 actors and a special effect. And each of these tiles also going to have like a number of stars designated to it, and that's your point. And be like, okay, well, this actor is a really well-known actor, and it's worth this many points because it's Leonardo di Frappuccino or whatever. But like, they've changed the name just enough so that it's not the actual actor's name, but it's punny and funny, and you know who it is, and by the caricature you can tell. And it's just such a funny game to play. And the same thing with the movies, right? Like, you have the title that'd be like, oh, okay, I see what they did there. So it's hilarious in that way, and the whole bidding thing is neat. And then once you complete a movie, it's like, okay, great, I've completed a movie. If you're the first one to complete a drama movie, then you would get like the first drama movie award, which is going to give you bonus points. And when you finish the first round, then they're going to be like, okay, who has the highest valued movie? You get this award, and so on. And then at the final one, then you have like the big award ceremony, and you'll get like top drama movies and bottom drama movie, or, you know, like, and there's all these different awards that gets handed out, so you get points for all of those. Whoever has the most points at the end is the winner. But it's such a neat, interesting game. And that's my number 5, Hollywood Blockbuster.
I didn't even know he was the designer of this when you were talking about this before. Now I really want to play this one too. Awesome. That was your number 5. My number 5 is Modern Art, the card game. Now, I haven't played Modern Art, the board game, so this is a smaller version of it, but it's really neat. It's a very quick game as well. You play in 4 rounds, and you have a hand of cards, and they're all pieces of art. And all you're going to do is play a piece to the middle. And they have colors on them, so or a type of artist. And so I might play one, and then somebody will just go around and play cards. Now, once you get to a maximum of so many cards, then that ends, and then you are going to give value to these pieces. Whatever's the most of one color is all going to get $3, but probably in thousands or millions or whatever. And you will place them on that artist, because you have like a list of artists with them that you'll place these on, and then everybody will get to score. And then the second most artists, they'll get a number 2 on them, and then the third most will get a 1. And then everybody will score their artists. So however many of the color that you played, you'll get that many dollars back in points. Now the thing is, these artists, some of them will have abilities on them too. So I might play a card that lets me play another one face down. I might play a card that just lets me play another one. There's all kinds of little abilities that you can use with these. But the face down ones also count towards the middle, but nobody knows what they are. So it could change a majority up at the end of the round, because at the end of the round, all the face down will get flipped up and add to the middle. It's kind of got a similarity to the game 5211. I'm not sure if you've ever played that one, but
I haven't yet. I bought it, but I haven't played it yet.
Yeah, it's a neat one too, but it's a little bit different. But it has that similarity, but this one has more of a theme, and then you're going to get the points for the majority. Now, once those money values go on the artist, they will stay from round to round. So say the next round, like the second most popular in the first round is the first popular in this round. So he'll get the 3. So now he has a 3 and a 2 on him. So now whoever has those cards out is going to get $5, right? And so maybe one that wasn't even picked the last round is going to have a 3. So it might have been better to get that second place one because he's got a 2 and a 3 on it. So you just kind of have to think, okay, well, I'm not sure what they're playing. I don't know what they have face down, but I want a bunch of these cards in the middle so that I can score like all mine, right? And I say the middle, but they still are on your side, so you know which ones you've placed there. But it's just one of those little, brain crunchy games with simple concepts, but still trying to figure out, okay, how am I going to maximize my points here? And the production of this game is so beautiful too. Like, I think there's multiple different productions of this game. I even just looking at on the Board Game Geek site, I looked at the cards and I'm like, that's not what mine look like. But it's one of those that you have to play. And I'm sure I know the main game, there's like auctioning in that one. I'm not a huge auction fan, so that's why I chose to get the card game version. But I still would like to try it. I don't hate auctioning as a mechanic. It's just not one I will grab. It doesn't draw me to, but I do end up liking them when I play them. But this is one you got to give a try. That's Modern Art, the card game, my number 5.
Yeah, that's one that if I come across, I definitely would pick it up. It looks great. You hear so much about it. Perfect. So that was your number 5. My number 4 is a family favorite. Like, if this was a list that we put together as a family, this would have been our number 1. Collectively for the family. So this is my number 4, and it's Formula Motor Racing, published in 1995. So each player gets 2 little race cars of their color, and you'll be kind of drawing cards to see, like, so the first card drawn is going to be like the middle position. They'll be back to back. And then the next person will have 1 car in the front, 1 car behind. Like, the last one person to get placed will be the first car and the last card. And then you have cards to play. And the cards will be of the different race cars. It'll be like, okay, so you could move, the yellow car or one of the yellow car by 3. But whoever car is behind it would kind of drift along with it, kind of take advantage of the wind or whatever. So they would move along 3 as well. So maybe I'm not yellow. It's not my benefit to move yellow per se. But I'm the purple car who's right behind the yellow car, so that would move me forward as well. So I would kind of kick, moving you by 3, so then you kind of pick which one, and then you move my own car as well, and then you kind of reset because you have all these cars in a row. And then the next person will play, and they'll play a card that'll move one of the cars, and then the one behind it. Or it could be like they'll force a pit stop for one of the red cars, and they'll be like, darn you, I don't want to take a pit stop because that slows you down. And they would have to roll, and if they get so-and-so, then you move back so many spaces. Or if they roll too low or too high, whatever, then nothing happens. It's like, aha, it's okay, sounds good. So, and you keep playing until you've kind of run out of cards, and then whatever the position of the car is the race, the kind of the position of the racing. Now, first place is worth so many points, second place is worth less, third place, and so on. And so you kind of keep track of how many points. But you will do multiple race and collect points for each race, and then whoever has the most points at the end of this race series basically is the winner. This is such a neat game. And I mean, it's simple because you have these tiny little cards in a row, and you play these cards, moving the position of the cards back and forth. And we'll play this with the family, and every time we play this, the family don't argue, like, oh yeah, let's play this, okay, it's fun. And then Jerome and Nick will be like, kind of keep quoting Telegata Nights, and be like, hey, shake and bake, baby. It's just hilarious, and we just love this one. So that's my number 4, Formula Motor Racing.
That's funny. All right, my number 4 is My City. Now, this is made in 2020, and this was a legacy game, but a lighter version of a legacy game. It's tile laying, and you're placing these polyomino tiles and building up your city. And it starts with, I think there's, I don't know if there's 20 games or 12 games. Now I can't remember. But you place these tiles strategically on your board, and you have to start near the river, which is the middle of your board. And so that... and then you kind of work from there out. So you have all these different colors of tiles, and you're trying to group light color tiles together because that'll give you the most points at the end of the round, of the first game anyway. I'm not going to spoil the rest, but each game adds something else to it. And so you just have this deck of cards, and you will draw a card, and then you will place whatever tile that is on your board. Now, near the end of the game, if you can't place that tile or you don't want to, you can pass and you go down a point. Now, it gets to a point where you don't want to just keep going down. You might just want to be done. You're done your game, and that's it. And because any more that will come out, because you know what tiles are all in the game. You have them all sitting in front of you because everybody has their tiles, and we all have the same types and amount of tiles. So it's just, again, it starts out quite simple, but then as the games go, it adds more and more and more to it. And it's such an inexpensive game, too. I think it's around $30 in Canadian.
Oh, nice.
And I think even less, of course, in the States. But for a legacy game that lasts, now I want to know how many games are in it, but it's quite a few. And it's an awesome 2-player game. You can play up to 4. They actually have it on BGA right now. You can play the whole campaign on there. I'm just going through it slowly again because it's been, I think, almost a year since we've played it. And we did save. We did a 2-player game in my box, and then we saved. We kind of reset it and put them all back in so that 2 more people could play it. But now going through it on BGA, I've completely forgot anything. So a year from now, I could go back to that box and do that whole legacy again. He is coming out with another one called My Island. Now I'm guessing it'll have some similarities, but will have some real more cool mechanics to it. But I totally recommend this one, especially for couples. It's such a nice... The games are so quick. They're like 20 minutes long. So you're usually like, okay, let's play another one. Okay, one more. So in an hour, nice. You can almost get in 3 games of this. But it's awesome. And that's my number 4, My City.
Yeah, that's one that you've heard. Like, when it first came out, it was like just a rage. Everybody was talking about how great this game was. So I haven't played it yet. It's definitely on my radar. And that was your number 4. So my number 3 is another crossover, and that's Ingenious. It was published in 2004, and this is just such a neat game. And depending on the number of play that you win, because you have like this board, and then the middle section is if you're playing 2 players, and if you're playing 3 players, then you go to like the slightly darker gray gets opened up, and then the full board is if you're playing 4, and then you have these tiles. And then the copy I have is like really nice, satisfying, like plasticky tile that you're kind of put down, and it is just such a neat trying to create the rows of the same color as you play. And then I've played this with Nick and Lee a few times, and I really, really enjoy this because I've got my copy of this one. I bought it secondhand, but I got it just a month or 2 ago, and we've played it a few times, and it's just such a neat, clever game. So I really enjoy that one. And that's my number 3, Ingenious.
Yeah, I knew you were going to pick this one. I write down our episode, and I circle the ones that we are linked, like that we have crossovers on, and I had circled that because I knew you were going to have that on your list already. Awesome. Well, my number 3 is another crossover, and that is Schotten Totten. I love this quick 2-player game. It's so fun, and just the whole little poker aspect of it, and trying to like get the you try to get 3 walls together, or just 5 overall. I had almost included this in my area control, but then I kind of, because you're just trying to the only area control is you're trying to get the 3 together, so I kind of thought it might not qualify, but it certainly could have, I guess, in a way, but no, I had changed it but still, I love this game. I love the little art on the cards, and just the quickness of the game too. I've taught this to, I mean, gamers love this game. I've taught it to my brother, who was like a gamer back in the day, you know, with the like all the old games we used to play, but he loves this, and he had to keep playing it until he won. And John loves this game too. And I just want to introduce it to so many people, because I think it's a perfect couples game, because you're just kind of going, you know, the whole wall goes right in front of you, and you're just trying to play to these walls and trying to win that wall. And as soon as you can prove you've won it, then you can put your little wall on your side, and you know that you have that one. Just and the fact that you can never have like perfect hands. Like you're like, okay, I'm going to work on this one and work on this one. I've got 2 9s here, hoping for another 9. Well, you're not going to get a 9. Or you're hoping for a run on this one, and then, you know, you see they just played the one that you needed, and you're like, oh, now I screwed up that whole wall there. But it's just so fun. Yeah. And that's my number 3, Schotten Totten.
Wonderful. My number 2 is Lost Cities, published in 1999. This one is just a neat 2-player game, and basically you're going on expedition, and there's, I can't remember, 5 or 6 expeditions you can go on. They all have like a different color to it. And what's interesting is, I mean, going on expedition is expensive business. So the moment you go in, you're negative 20 points. So you got to collect enough points to make it worthwhile. Now, you will be adding cards to your expedition, but you got to maintain numerical order. So if you put a 3, you can't go and put a 2 and a 1 afterwards. Like you've blocked those out. So you'll be adding cards to it, you can also kind of make, there's like a handshake symbol, which would allow you to multiply the score that you get there, so double the score. So if you'd be like, okay, I've got so much blue in my hand, I'm going to double those points. So I'll put a handshake first, and they have to be played first. Now, you could play multiple handshakes on the same one as well. So now I'm like, okay, I'm actually quadrupling this score. And it could be that I had all the points that I need, but you also have to keep in mind, you got to get them played before the deck runs out, because then you may end up, okay, the game's over. It's like, no, I need to, because if you don't score a positive point and you've got the handshake card there, you're doubling or quadrupling your negative score as well. And it could very well be as you're playing, because you're doing these different expeditions. So it's not worthwhile doing every expedition, because now you're spreading yourself so thin. But, you know, concentrate on the one that looks like you've got a lot of points for. And then it could be like, okay, well, I mean, I have a lot of high card blues, but I need more cards. Like, I need some of the little ones. Where are they? It could be the other player has them. It's like, oh, you're going for blue. I'm going to hold on to these. And so there has, like, a lot of that element where you're trying to play what you need. You're trying to withhold from discarding what the other player needs, because you'll discard in between. Like, you have, like, the board in between that have, like, the expedition. But anytime you discard a blue card, it goes into the blue discard card. And be like, oh, sweet, then you can draw from there as well. It's like, I needed that one, so you could pick it from the middle pile too. But it has such a neat, kind of interesting decision. Do I do this? Do I play that? Should I hold this in my hand? Like, like, I don't need it. I need more cards, so maybe it made more sense to discard it to pick up more cards. But it's such a neat, fun 2-player game, and that's my number 2, Lost Cities.
Good choice. I love that one. My number 2 is Quest for El Dorado, and this was made in 2017. Now, this one is a race game, and you are racing from the beginning of this track, this modular track that you can build. It's not really a track, but it's a I guess, what would you call it when you build a map? Yes, thank you. This map that you're building, you can build it all kinds of ways. It comes with all different pieces you can flip over and connect it any way you want. But there's usually 4, I think, that you connect, 4 big pieces. I'm sure you could play it with more and just be a longer game. But and so what you're doing is, in a 2-player game, you get 2 people, but in any higher player count, I think it only goes up to 4. Can't tell from here. It's a 4-player game. Yeah. So in a 3 or 4 player game, you only have one explorer each. And so what you do is you have this hand of cards, and it's a deck builder. That's part of the mechanism. And you will draft 5 cards, I think, and then you can use all those cards to either move or you can buy more cards. Now, the movement on the cards depends on the terrain. So if I need to go through like desert, I need to use those cards. If I need to go through water, I need to have paddles. If I want to go through forest, I need to have, no, I can't remember what they're called, but the green cards. Now, you can't, this one rule I always confuse. You can't use multiple cards, is it, for one movement, but you can use one movement for multiple tiles. Now, I always got those mixed up, but it could be the opposite. Yeah. Do you remember? It's one of those things, but so you can do one, but not the other.
Yeah, like you couldn't use.
I don't think you can add cards together
to move 2 space.
But you can't combine cards to move. I think it's you can split or you can use a card to move 2. But anyway, it's one of those things. That's not the importance.
Yeah.
The importance is you're trying to get to the end of this map as fast as you can. So sometimes you'll kind of use this strategy like, I don't need to buy more cards. I can just keep moving. Then all of a sudden you come to this area where you need like a 3 paddle card. And you can't do it because you can't, it is the rule. You can't add cards together. So you need to buy one of those cards that has like at least 3 on them so you can get past that one tile. So there's all kinds of cards you can buy. But the market is quite neat because you have a row of cards that are available for purchase, and then you have a whole bunch of cards that are at the top. Now, until you empty one of those piles on the bottom, you can't pull from any of the cards at the top. So whoever empties a pile gets to choose which pile of cards from the top gets to come back or gets to come into the market, which is kind of neat too, because then you know, okay, I really need that stack up there. And like, because there's all different kinds of cards, some that'll give you a variety. You can choose which kind of terrain you want to use. There's a card that'll let you draw 2 or 3 more. Like there's just all kinds of things. And it's just it makes my heart race, this game, because, at the beginning it's fine. Everybody's kind of even, but as you get towards them, like halfway and then beyond, you're like, oh, okay, I gotta get moving, but I still need more cards. I don't want to waste my turn, like just buying cards, but you have to in order to get to the end, because you can't just do it with your starting deck. You have to buy cards. But another strategy can be you just don't move and you just build up cards. You just build up your deck, and then all of a sudden, bam, you just fly by everybody. It's neat. It's a fun game, and it's for everyone, I think. It's a great family game, and I just love it. And that's my number 2, Quest for El Dorado.
That is a great choice, and it's such an interesting game. Like the different aspect, right? Like the different terrain you have to go through. So, and it's easy to got lots of jungle ahead of me, so you're concentrating on collecting those cards, and then you're in water and be like, well, I haven't been collecting this, so you can't kind of concentrate on one aspect too much, because then you're gonna feel the stress of that later on. And then the kind of deciding which card to bring into the market, those limitations. Interesting.
Oh, and then you also have these little volcano or mountain hexes that if you land next to them, you get to pull this little tile and it gives you a special ability. Those are neat too.
Yeah.
And then there's an expansion. I do have one of the expansions, and it adds quite a bit to it too, like with just more ways to move. But yeah, it's so neat.
Nice.
So what's your number 1?
Neat game. My number 1 is Blue Moon City, which was published in 2006. And honestly, that's probably my number 1 just because it's the latest one I've been playing, and we've played it a few times, and it's so cool. And you have this board, and you start in the middle, and you have like this city that got destroyed, and you're rebuilding it, basically. And you have these dragons that are kind of overseeing this whole thing, and then they'll reward you if they notice you kind of fixing up the city. So you have these cards, and you'll be going around from, like, you can move so many spaces, go into this location, and be like, okay, so this one has, like, 3 spots that will require blue cards to be able to kind of complete the city. But if there's 3 spots, you got to kind of work on it 3 times in order to be able to complete that location. and they'll have a number on it. So 4, 3, and a 2 maybe. So, okay, well, I don't have 4, but I do have 3 value of the blue, so you could discard that to kind of put your token on the number 3 and so on. Now, some of the cards will actually also allow you to move the dragon. So be like, well, I'm going to bring the red dragon so he can come and see me do this to get the reward. And then if you could bring in multiple dragon as well, too. So I'm going to bring the red dragon and the blue dragon, and I've contributed to this. And they're like, oh, thanks for doing this. And they'll give you a golden scale. And you kind of can accumulate those. Whenever all the golden scales go out, then those get transferred in. Whoever has the majority gets. I don't know if it's shards or the money, but it could be the money. But then you also gain crystal shards as well. And then you'd be kind of spending to add those to the main tower, which is kind of what triggers the end and the winner as well. It's just such an interesting game. I've enjoyed it quite a bit. It's a neat kind of area control, I guess, game. But yeah, so that's my number 1, Blue Moon City.
Oh, awesome. I have never tried that one. That was on my list. I didn't mention all of them that I wanted to play, but that was on one of them too as well. Awesome. Well, my number 1 is a crossover, and this is Lost Cities. This is probably one of my most played games. One of them, anyway. Just love this game. It's so fun, and it's been made into so many versions. Like you said, there's a board game. There's a roll-in right now, which is actually awesome. I did end up getting it. And then there's also a 4-player card game version, which I have. It's on my shelf of shame that I haven't got to the table. It has there's a bit of a auction mechanic in there, and maybe that's why that I haven't got it to the table, but I have to try it because I had bought it because I love the 2-player game and thought, well, what if I want to play with more people? Then I'll get the 4-player game. So I want to try out that one, but it's such a neat game, and I mean, you can play this one in BGA as well, but it's just so fun because you think you're going to have these perfect expeditions, and you never do. And you start out with, say, 4 of one color, and you're like, oh yeah, I'll easily get at least 2 more. Sometimes you don't get more, and you've already started your expedition, and now you're like, oh, I just need 1 more card so I'm not in the negatives at least. But you just have such high hopes at the beginning of these big point expeditions, and it usually never happens. You usually end up, but sometimes you do get one really, really good one, but it's a push your luck game too, because you're like, oh, should I really start this one? I don't know, but I see a lot of cards in the discard already that I can just grab and add to it. But then you're wasting time because the other players playing cards and digging out of the pile that we haven't seen yet. So it's just awesome. And the roll and write is really cool. Actually, it's got a little bit of a different take on it. Like, you're still building up these expeditions, but of course it relies on dice as well. So could go even worse. I've only tried this one solo. I haven't brought it out to a game night yet, but I'm excited to do that. But yeah, that's my number 1, Lost Cities. I guess the whole franchise of it, other than I haven't played the board game. So that's it. That was our top 9 Reiner Knizia games. Yeah. And so many more to come that I can't wait to try. And some on your list I haven't played. That Hollywood Blockbuster, Blue Moon City, and High Society. I don't know how I haven't tried this game yet. But
you have to
play that one as well. Yeah. Awesome. Well, if people... Oh, let's talk about next week. So next week, we are going to give out our spooky games list. So kind of Halloween-y theme, spooky game.
Yes, because that episode is coming out Halloween Day.
Yes, Halloween Day. So just to get you in the mood to see. I don't have a ton of those games, but...
I do.
The ones I do have, I really enjoy. Yeah, you have a ton. This must have been a real tough one for you. I had to borrow some of Mel's games.
I haven't done the list yet. I have to put it together still, so... Because I'm like, I've got a few that's like, before I do my list, I want to get this one played, and I want to get this one played, and oh wait, I got to get this one back to the table. I love it. I love the Cthulhu theme. I love the spooky, and I don't know why. Like, I don't like spooky movies. I don't like to be scared, but in board game settings, I love it.
Well, I think maybe because you're like, it's not like you're doing it alone. There's people around you, so it's like not scary, kind of. Like it's a little, but not really. But anyway, if people want to get a hold of you, how would they do that?
Okay, so on Facebook, my Facebook group is Mel's and Friends Board Game Room. I'm also on Instagram as Mel's_boardgame_room, and my YouTube channel is Mel's Board Game Room. How about you, Carla? How can we find you?
You can find me on Instagram at Board Game Specialist, all one word, and on Facebook I have a page called Red Deer Board Game Fanatics. And I just wanted to mention to y'all, if anybody ever wants to play a game on Board Game Arena with me, just give me a direct message in my Instagram and I'd be happy and would love to play a game with you on Board Game Arena. It's a way you can play with people all around the world, so it's awesome. And I would do that gladly. But until next week, we will be finished for now and see you once again. Bye for now. Thanks for listening.
Bye.